Hey, thanks for dropping by to the Planners on Purpose podcast, created by Naomi Tucker, CMP. Now, this space is for the event planners to encourage and empower you so that you can fully live your life on purpose. So before we dig in, please take a moment to subscribe so you get future shows. Now, here she comes, your host, Naomi.
Everyone talks about the goals that they are looking to have for this year and how they're looking to accomplish those goals. And many times when we get into making those goals happen for ourselves, there's so many things that end up happening. Either we totally fail at our resolutions or what we're setting out to do. And some of that comes from the fact that we're thinking too big, or we literally just aren't asking what the root reason is for us to want to be able to make the change. Because many times we aspire to do these big things. However, we are not necessarily mindful of the root of where that aspiration came from. And when we actually think about that and ask ourselves why, we come up short. And if we come up short and we can't tie our goals and aspirations back to something that's concrete, something that is purposeful, something we can believe in, many times because we can't do that, we will fail at that goal. And it doesn't feel really good to fail. So it's important to understand why you are setting up the goal for yourself. And it also comes down to the fact that maybe we're not really ready for the change either. And that can come at some type of discourse for us because we really want to do these big things, complete things for ourselves. However, there's a lot of frustration in doing so, and it could mean that we're not quite ready. Now, I wanted to unpack the 5 stages of change. And this is something that it's a specific model that really unpacks the stages of change and how it happens. And I definitely wanted to go over that. This model is called the transtheorical model of health behavior change, and has been definitely utilized by many different therapists all over. And so I wanted to unpack what these stages of change are on today's episode because of the fact that it can help give us some insight as to why many times our New Year's resolutions fail or the goals that we set for ourselves fail. But before I do that, I wanted to introduce myself for those that do not know me. I'm Naomi Tucker, your host, business strategist, and coach here on the podcast. And I just want to welcome those that do not know me. And for those that do, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for being here. And if you have been here and have listened to the podcast for a few times already and you continue to come back, I would just love it if you would go ahead and leave a review of the podcast. It would mean the world to me if you would do that. I would really appreciate it. So leave a review of the podcast. Let me know what you think, and hopefully it's all good, and I look forward to seeing that. But as we dig back into really the psychology behind change and how change really happens, there's 5 stages of change, and I wanted to really unpack what those stages are. The first stage is precontemplation, and this really happens when we're first thinking of a goal or something that we would want to change. Pre-contemplation is when we're actually becoming aware that there's something that we need to be changed. And typically there's a whole other world that happens before pre-contemplation, right? Many times that awareness process of us understanding and knowing that maybe we would want or need to change something, that can take a long time. So many times when I was talking about, hey, maybe you should think about what the reason is for you to make that change. If the reason is that somebody is telling you that you need to change, that may not always be a reason to change, especially if you're not necessarily aware and really tied to what that person is actually saying. Because many people can say, oh, you should go and write a book. However, unless you really feel as though you need to write a book, you may not write that book. So contemplation is you starting to become aware that there is something that you want or need to change. The second stage is contemplation. Contemplation is all about you thinking about making the change. So there's two different areas. There's, again, pre-contemplation, where you're just starting to become aware of your behavior and aware of the fact that you might need to have a change. And then contemplation is you really contemplating it. You're weighing the pros and the cons of this change. You're really confirming with yourself if you're actually ready for this change. And even in this stage, you're trying to figure out if perhaps there are any type of obstacles that's going to come your way as a result of the change that you're looking to make. And so those are some things that might come up when you're contemplating it. And so if you have put a goal out there and you have not yet asked yourself important questions like why, what is the reason why I want to change, or what's going to prevent me from making this change, then you might want to take some time and really think through the change that you're trying to make. And on one hand, you might feel as though, man, I did not think this all the way through. I am not ready for that change. And perhaps that goal is something that you should not move toward, or it's going to ignite you to continue to move forward and be all in on making the change. And when that happens, you start to get preparation. And preparation is really when you start to write down your goals. You are preparing to make this change. So this is great, because as we get towards some of these other stages, this is where many people who actually stick to their goals and stick to, let's say, New Year's resolutions that they were looking to make, or, goals for the year, this is where people actually are starting to stick to their goals. So when you're in preparation, it's all about writing down your goals. And not only just writing down your goals, you're going to write down that plan of action. How will you accomplish that goal? How many days a week are you going to move towards that goal? Are there any tools that you need in order to make your goal happen? Do you need to finance the goal that you're looking to do? All of this should be something that you write down and start to prepare your strategy for actually going ahead and moving forward and tackling that goal. And this is also where you can help motivate yourself by telling yourself good things about how you're going to attempt to do this goal, or reading self-help books to be able to help you with meeting your goal. This is where you're really preparing your mind, you're writing things down, and you're giving yourself that motivation in order to actually act and complete your goal. Which brings us to stage 4. So stage 4 is all about action in our model for behavior change. With stage 4, you're actioning your goal. And when you're actioning your goal, you're doing what you need to do in order to meet the goal, and you're rewarding your success. Perhaps there's milestones along the way that you're celebrating, and you're rewarding yourself. Also, you're sharing your goal with others, because that helps you to continue to get more action. We talked about on the podcast in one of our previous episodes about how sharing your goals are super important, and it can be helpful for you, and it can help you have some fast movement towards your goal, because you have people motivating you, encouraging you, perhaps even assisting you in order to get to your goal. So seeking out that social support is going to be super helpful. And again, when you get to action, this is where many people are going to really stick to their goal, especially because they have prepared, they have contemplated, and they have even pre-contemplated what their goal is. So they're more prepared to actually make it happen for themselves. And then the final stage is maintenance. And maintenance is understanding what is going to be some strategies that you're going to use in order for you to make sure that you are consistent with moving forward to your goal. And there's all sorts of things that can come into play. There's obstacles that might happen. There might be temptations for you to not actually move forward to your goal or do something totally different. This is where you need to develop a coping strategy for overcoming any of those temptations that might be forcing you back into bad habits. So making sure that you know what that plan is and then reward yourself for actually sticking to your guns and moving forward through that obstacle and through that temptation. So developing what that maintenance plan is going to be, kind of that plan B, plan C, especially for planners. I know we know how to make those plans, but when you're getting on your goals, and if you know that there's going to be certain things that are going to pop up, that's where you need to make sure that you have some type of a coping strategy so that you can get through that temptation or obstacle and go ahead and meet your goal. Now, if you can get through this stage and you get through this stage 5, you can become more assured that you're going to continue with your change and continue to make your goal. And there are certain things that also could happen. We could come through a disappointment. There could be disappointment. You could be frustrated. You could also just fail at your goal. And if this happens, and it happens often, the key is to really recognize what happened, what the barriers were to your success, and maybe develop another strategy in order to overcome that barrier or temptation. Identify if there's anything that triggered you to lead to whatever that step back was. Figure out what that is so that you can overcome it and then reaffirm your goal and get back right in the bandwagon with action. So there is kind of like a little small phase here where you could possibly be, let's say, a relapse phase. And then I would just say, then, hey, go back to action. And once you go back to action, then you can continue to move forward. So I hope that can help you understand the model of behavior change when it comes to us moving forward to our goal. If we're working in teams, this also can be very interesting because you can see that not everybody is always in the same place when it comes to moving forward to your goal. So as the person who's leading a team, making sure everyone's aware, they understand why we're moving towards a goal, they're prepared, and they're taking consistent action, and you're helping and supporting them if they were to take a step back or miss the mark somewhere. That is going to be very key. So I hope this really helps you, again, with understanding the psychology of change so it can help you when you're looking to make a change yourself. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you on another episode. Stay on purpose.
Well, that wraps it up for this episode. If you enjoyed the conversation, hit the like button and tell us how much you enjoyed the show by leaving a message in the comments. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.